Okay, folks, I think we'll go ahead and begin. Lila, if you're able to just admit people, if you see anyone else, thank you so much.
No problem.
So our fearless leader, Courtney, is not here with us this evening. She is taking some much needed vacation, but we have an interesting topic tonight. Where else could our garbage go? Um, and just making sure, sorry, a small glitch. Okay, here we go. So just introducing our group, we are Westchester Alliance for Sustainable Solutions, otherwise known as WASS. We're an alliance of community organizations from Westchester County working to close the Wheelabrator Westchester incinerator, operated by Wind Waste Innovations in Peekskill, where the county's trash is burned. And the thing that I always like to say when we share this slide is emphasize that it's an alliance, that this is something that we have to do together, that it's all of our garbage, and we really need to work as a community to do this. So the agenda for this evening, I'm going to start us out by talking a little bit, giving a bit of a recap of the tour that some of us from WASS went on recently for the Materials Recovery Facility, otherwise known as the MRF. And then Lila is going to update us on the long awaited county waste reduction study that was released today. I see Sue, I think, cheering. And then Lila will also share a little bit about our city by city program. And then we'll end with our action item, which will be related to the waste study. So just a few weeks ago, or not even, some of us visited the Material Recovery Facility in Yonkers, or the MRF, and we just wanted to share some of the highlights for those of you who either wanted to go or have been in the past, and maybe you can get some updates. So one piece of information that we learned is that about 1% of the material received at the MRF is considered contamination or residue. And one of the people on the tour asked a really excellent question and said, well, what does that mean? Like, how much is that really? And our tour guide shared that that 1% would represent about one container truck. So if you look at the truck in this picture, one truck per day would be considered residue or contamination and would be incinerated. So that kind of gives a sense of, I guess, the mistakes people are making in terms of their what they're putting into their blue bins. The MRF sorts, bales, and attempts to market all of the materials that they receive. Again, I kind of want to emphasize attempt. The most valuable plastics are numbers 1s and 2s, and then 3s through 7s are baled all together, and they have very low or no value. And I'm gonna move along here. So this is the tipping room floor, and it's showing the commingled side. So, you know, we have plastic, glass, cartons, aluminum, non-ferrous metals. And I think the thing that I'd like to kind of hone in on here are all the plastic bags that you see. This is clearly like an educational piece that really needs to be driven home, that the commingled should not be bagged. They have a process in place to loosen all of this commingled material, and then this conveyor belt that you see, like this diagonal blue slanted feature, they make this very, very thin they make the materials very thin so that then it can go up to this area where humans by hand pick out what they call the residue or the contamination. Um, so that gives you a sense of kind of that first step. And then this is a close-up, which I find both disturbing and fascinating because it's just such a vast array of packaging. Um, and we even saw something blinking when it was going up on that conveyor belt that was like must have been a child's toy or something. And then this is the other side of the tipping room floor where they take in paper and cardboard. Um, One of the things that they share every time they do the tour is how in the past it was like primarily newspaper that was coming into this part, and now it's primarily boxes, cardboard. So that's a shift. And then here we're kind of skipping ahead. So once they've um, sorted and the products, they'll bale them. And here you can, if you look closely, you can see these are bales of like cartons, or they're called Tetra Packs or aseptic packaging or gable top cartons. Um, and they would market these like as a unit. And it's kind of an interesting category because it's both paper and plastic together, and sometimes a little bit of aluminum. So it's kind of its own category. Um, but here in Westchester, they do, I guess, have a market for it. And then this is not a great photo, but it's the only one I have. This shows baled number 2 plastics. Um, and you can see like milk, like gallon milk jugs in there, would be an example. And these number 2 plastics are really valuable in the scheme of plastics. And then if I move on to this slide, which is sobering, um, this is the number 3 through 7 plastics. So the way it was described to us is that, I'm going to go back for a second, these bales of number 2 plastics are marketed and have value. And these bales of number 3 through 7 plastics are bundled in with those number 2 plastics. And the question that I didn't ask, and I regret not asking, is like, if they weren't bundled in, could they be sold at all? And I believe the answer is no. And we did kind of push a little bit on, you know, what happens to the 3 through 7s? Like, is there any guarantee that it's being um, truly recycled or reused in some fashion? And the answer was kind of, to me, less than satisfactory. But
Can
they
I
do
just
market it.
can I just
Um,
jump in, Caitlin,
yeah, please.
and say, just for Neil's one quick question, I
Oh,
think it's
sure.
dual stream because paper is separate from the rest of the commingled, but paper is not with metal and plastic. So there's sort of two sides.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but about what you were saying, I was really surprised when we asked um, how much isn't being taken in the market, and that they said that 100% of the material that they separate out at the MRF gets sold to a market. And that's where we got into the conversation about, well, what about the 3s through 7s that are tricky? So they told us that in Westchester County, residents really are pretty good about their recycling, that our 1s and 2s are pretty high quality and clean enough or whatever, that the purchasers like purchasing from Westchester County. So they've been able to negotiate to say, if you take our 1s and 2s, you have to take everything else.
Right.
We don't really know where that company resells to, or there's no way we don't know that everything that they take really gets recycled versus they pick through what they want and it's still a good value and then they pass on,
Yeah,
some of
but
it. You don't
first of
know.
all, thank you for the answer. I have a follow-up question. How do they handle glass?
Yeah. Okay. So Neil, I'm going to make an exception for you because
No, please
you,
don't. Please
so
just
no,
continue
no,
with
no,
the
no. I want
question.
to answer that because I actually know the answer to it. And then because the recycling questions are such a kind of like explosive topic, and I want to make sure that we get to the rest of the slideshow, I'm going to hand it off to Lila in a second. But I actually almost put in a few photos of the glass. The glass is basically broken. And to my mind, unfortunately, the only use that the way that it's reused is like landfill cover. So it's, if
Uh,
you're being generous, you can call it downcycling.
and in terms of the technology, though, my best understanding was they said they're crushing it to about a 2-inch grid that it's falling through, and they are using optical sorters of some sort of optical technology to
For the
sort.
plastic, right?
I thought for the glass as well.
Oh, okay.
They no longer separate out the glass by color. The glass
No,
is
no,
the
no.
same.
Yeah, right, right. Yeah, yeah. I almost put in this photo from several years ago of a truck that was carrying it away because I've been on the tour a couple times, carrying away the glass. And I didn't trust myself that it was the glass because even though, yeah, I didn't trust myself because it looks like there's glass and all sorts of other things in there. So I decided to put it in. But yeah, that's what I was told a few years ago is happening to the glass. And I think they get al almost nothing for it. So I'm gonna put a pin in our recycling tour portion of the evening for now and hand it off to Lila. And then hopefully we'll have a lot of time at the end for any more questions.
All right. So I'm Lila Goldmark. For folks who don't know me, I am not a scientist in our group. I am an environmental lawyer, so I can talk a little more about policy things, and deep dive science questions will have to be for somebody else. But today we intended to have you do an action alert to get this study released. It's been almost 2 years in the works and they released it today. So I can't give folks a full rundown or critique of what's in it. We need a little time to digest it, but we can cover just a couple things. I will say those of us that have skimmed through it are frustrated. What we had originally asked for was a zero waste study with the purpose being figuring out a way to end incineration. And I want to reiterate for people that while there are many environmental reasons to do this, it is also a financial problem for us in Westchester. We have a 40, I guess I now have to say 41-year-old incinerator that's tied for the oldest in the country. And they are usually retired at about 24 or 28 years of age. So this incinerator is already very old. Instead of doing a study that looked at how to move away from incineration, we got a waste reduction study that did not look at incineration really at all. So let me read you the first part of the press release.
Lila, just let me
Sorry, I
know
have
when
so
you want me to
many.
advance, okay?
No problem. I have so many here from their press release today. Westchester County has released its comprehensive waste reduction study, and the findings confirm that the county is leading when it comes to waste reduction. The study has also outlined a forward-looking strategy to further increase recycling, reduce waste, and advance a circular economy in alignment with New York State's goal of achieving 85% recycling rate by 2050. So that's really what I would like people to pay attention to is we have a 40-year-old incinerator. The county's contract to use this facility is up in 2029 in 5 years. And that's why we have been pushing for these studies. What do we do when we no longer have an incinerator available to us?
It's crazy.
So next slide. Now, because we haven't had time to absorb it all, let's give a little credit where credit is due. They did do some surveying. The survey was not well designed. There were not a lot of respondents. I think there are 34 municipalities in the district, and only 27 of them even responded to the municipal survey. In any case, these are the 10 strategy recommendations, and they, on their face, look like good recommendations. The problems will be in the rest of the study. So expanded organics management, that's something we've talked about in a lot of our task force meetings, both food scraps and yard waste. Back to basics education. Big problem was that a lot of people just don't know what's available or what to do with their material. More outreach for multifamily buildings, supporting municipal and commercial C&D diversion, so construction, maximizing diversion from commercial waste, increasing enforcement. In any case, these are all generic and good things. The county does have good programs. We should be supporting their efforts and expanding what is available. But next slide, please. The big red flag is, as I'm saying, they did not take any attempt to get off incineration seriously. So here is from the stakeholder participation section of the report. I think page 29 is the first time that they mention incineration, only to dismiss it by saying, during the virtual stakeholder meeting, the discussion of one group, that being us, centered primarily on the desire to close the WTE facility, the waste to energy facility, which is outside of DEF's control, as it is a privately operated facility. Now, this seems extremely disingenuous. Let's go to the next slide. Without a full overview, the legal ownership, operation of the land, the facility, who's operating it is complicated, but it's essentially the county and a county agency that own the property and the building, and it's leased to WinWaste, to an operator, to operate the Wheelabrator facility. And here you can see this is the current operating agreement where it is laid out. There is a plan for purchase and decommissioning of the facility. So if the county, which is the main customer, were to terminate the agreement early or get to the expiration of the contract and choose not to renew it, they would be forced to sell the incinerator to the operator, to WinWaste, for $1. The idea, presumably in the past, was that they would have made the money and they would be decommissioning it, and the cost is on them for decommissioning. However, lawyer me is going to say whatever idiot wrote this contract did not require them to actually shut the incinerator if the county is no longer a customer. So if the county does not renew the contract, technically Wind Waste could buy the facility for $1 and keep taking garbage from other places. So this is why the county is saying they can't do anything about it to shut it down. And we can get into other discussion another day, but it's operating with an administratively extended permit. If the county wanted to take this seriously, they could fight re-permitting of the facility. They could join the community in shutting it down. It's just not credible for them to say they don't have control or any ability to help with that fight. Now, I would like to, again, on the previous slide, I said that they did not look at any alternatives to incineration. And maybe when I'm done or later, Neil, we do have more expertise on our call here than me. To be fair to the study, in a 70-page study, there were 4 pages that examined alternatives to incineration, but they were all dismissed out of hand, and they seemed to me like very boilerplate descriptions. So they described waste to energy combustion, incineration, what we're doing, pyrolysis, gasification, landfilling, and anaerobic digestion, and basically said they were all not feasible or expensive, and did zero analysis of what our county situation would be. There was no cost comparison, no cost benefit analysis, nothing comparing a realistic picture of incineration to any of these other options for us in Westchester County. Just an academic blurb explaining what they were. All right, let's go next. Okay, so because we have preferred to try to work amicably with the county for the last couple years and had some exuberance for this process, we have been, pushing the county to give guidance down to the rest of the municipalities. But we think it is time for us to come up with more of a city by city approach, going to municipalities so that we have more allies to pressure the county to move in the right direction. So we're envisioning this in a few ways, and we'll definitely be looking for people. We need some capacity building and introductions. So we do hope we can find volunteers in each community to help reach out to your local electeds, to your conservation boards. One thing I'd really like to highlight is making friends. So I used to be an attorney for Riverkeeper's watershed program, and years ago I worked with Westchester County to do a road salt reduction campaign for water protection. And the real issue with that, I think, is just like the garbage. We can keep going to electeds, we can talk about policy, but we have to also go to our DPW, to the folks who are really collecting the garbage, sorting the garbage, and implementing all these things that we're pushing for. So in addition to perhaps educating electeds, we would love to get meetings with public works departments so that we can make friends. We can ask them, what are they doing? What are municipalities doing independent of the county? What support would they like to see from the county? Let's see what we can do bottom up. So let's go to the next slide. So we've been starting to do some research where we don't have materials to show you now, but the goal would be that we could help prep folks in each municipality to have an easy fact sheet, resources for you that are tailored to your community, that would show you what county programs your municipality is already involved in. Then we would want some help going to your community and saying, well, what else are you working on? So for example, a lot of Westchester municipalities are part of the Climate Smart Communities program. Is a state program for reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Not all of that is relevant to waste management, but a good some of it is. So let's go to the next slide. So these are examples of programs with specific criteria and scoring that communities can be rated on. So these are the programs we've identified that have direct tie-ins to waste management. Um, Not going to get too into that, to the specifics of that tonight, but that's one example of things that we can do. We can offer other model legislation, other initiatives, look for case studies from our local communities. All right, next, Kaylin. So these really are just a brainstorm of questions. And I would ask when we get to Q&A if folks could put in the chat, what are questions you would really want for your um, local waste management? If you're in a town that you know is doing a particularly unique or innovative program that's not a county program, we would love to hear about it. For example, I'm in Croton. It's a riverside community. I looked on our local website, and we have a whole information about fishing line recycling and collection. The county does boat wrap. I never would have thought of plastic fishing line, but that's one example. And again, really, the emphasis want to have these meetings, want to go in and ask questions, but really want to do it in a what are you already doing? What are you doing that's working? What are you proud of that you want to share with other communities? And how can we help you? That would be the push for the county. If there are municipalities doing successful individual programs, what would help them scale it up? Does every town need to have their own truck for food scraps? Or is that where we get some economy of scale if we could get county funding to help widen one municipality's program to serve more communities? All right, next. So that's kind of it for our city by city for now. Um, Upcoming, we will have another field trip. So I hope folks would like to join us. It is to the county's CompostEd facility in Valhalla in March. If you'd like to do that, please do email. That's not a online sign up. I guess space is limited and we need to have a head count to give them. So if anybody is interested in that tour, I have not been on that yet, so I can't tell you what to expect, but I am excited to go. So you will just email WASSPeekskill@gmail.com. And let's go next. So for our upcoming next task force meetings in March, we will debrief the CompostEd tour. We'll be doing that morning, actually. So we'll give you feedback immediately after the tour. And next month, we will have a much more specific critique of the solid waste study, and we'll get into that in a bit more detail. And in April, one of the areas that the county has been asking for help with is textile recycling. So the county does partner. Caitlin, what is the name of that? Helpsy, I think that is the business that they partner with. I'm going to try to work out getting some sort of tour of Helpsy's site. That's not county operated, so the donations go directly to this company, which I don't know much about. So we'll do some research and be teaching people about what the county is actually doing. And as it gets a little warmer, we thought it would be a good time to have an in-person event. So as we started planning out our Earth Day options, we thought let's do our own clothing swap and educational day and meet and greet. So I'm in Croton. We have a great new musical kind of small performance venue with a little stage, and they like to do community events on Sunday afternoons. So they have agreed to host us sometime in April or May. So date still to be determined, but we will be setting up a fun community textile event. Next. All right, and that really gets us pretty much to the end. We had a letter writing petition for you to write to the county to get the study released, but it's out. So we hope that you will actually go and take a look at the study and be ready to jump back in with us next month and figure out where do we go from here. So I think with that, let's have a free conversation Q&A and let us hear from you.
Yeah, please just raise your hand, or if you prefer, you can write any questions you have in the chat. I was sharing my screen, so I wasn't looking at the chat.
You can't see the screen because
No,
you're.
now I can. Now I can. Because I stopped sharing. I'm just seeing what Maggie Clark says here. She says, I think the answer is to go as fast as possible on a fleshed out zero waste plan. Yeah, I agree.
Well, here, maybe while you're reading some of the
Oh,
questions,
wait.
see
Yeah,
Sue
please.
and Maggie have their hands up. So folks that
Oh,
want to
good. Yeah.
step in and talk, please talk with us.
So
Sue, go ahead.
okay.
Or sorry.
Um, so yeah, thanks for all that information. I took that tour a couple of years ago when we started the food scrap program, and it's so shocking. It's so unbelievably shocking. But what I did remember from them, from the tour guide, is he said there's a very strong market for post-consumer aluminum and
Uh-huh.
glass. So
Oh,
plastic, there's very little of a post market, but that aluminum there was, and glass and metal of any kind.
Sue,
So
do you know when you took the tour roughly?
yeah, about 2.5 years ago.
Oh, that's really interesting.
But definitely the same thing
We're
about,
getting different information.
well, did they say that about metal and
Yeah,
aluminum?
metal definitely, 100% aluminum, but not, I didn't hear that about the glass. It doesn't
I
mean
switched
it wasn't said.
immediately to buying like pickles in glass jars. I've
Yeah.
always looked for glass now. And
Oh gosh.
it is a little harder yeah, of course you have to wash it out and everything. Peanut
Mm-hmm.
butter in glass jars are better than peanut butter in plastic. But in any
Yeah,
case, it's all good information, and a lot of plastic is just, not recycled. But my
right.
my other question is, let's see. I don't understand the focus on the cities, but I'm happy to work with you on that. I really think the county um, has to be strong-armed about. Now, I'm not sure whether there is a focus of this group, but it sounds like you want to do away with incineration completely. And I don't know if I kind of buy into that, because I think I mentioned to this group last month that I went to visit my sister in Dublin, Ireland, and they have a beautiful $8 million incinerator that is zero waste or zero emissions and creates quite a bit of positive electricity. So, I mean, I think it's our old system is so bad, but I don't think a whole new incinerator to build is that will be that expensive. I just don't think that we've done the investigation, but I'll leave that for the scientists to figure out. But I don't know what you're pushing the county to do. It's like you saying close the incinerator, and yes, we need zero waste, but then, there's a long time period in the middle there. Are we going to start a landfill? Are we going to ship it out of town? I'm not sure if I like those options.
Well, that was supposed to be the point of this study, and they didn't do it.
They didn't do the study. Well, that's disappointing.
I mean,
Very disappointing.
that is exactly the study we asked for. Was every time we met with them, it was, well, what do you want us to do about incineration? And we would say, we are not the scientists. That's not our job or expertise. You need to hire people that do that, and that's what this study was supposed to be. And rather than setting any goals that were, forget what your politics about whether you like the incineration or not. This one is not a brand new state-of-the-art incinerator. This thing could go, and it is dirty and old. So what are they going to do? God forbid there's a fire or a problem or whatever. They're going to have no incinerator, and nobody's looking at that. Nobody is looking at an end-of-life solution when we do not have the option of this incinerator, whether we like it or not. They just said, hey, we could landfill, but that's in Western New York, and trucking it has its own carbon emissions. Like, it was one paragraph.
Okay, well, I look forward to reading that report. Thank you for sharing it. But if anybody wants to look up the Dublin facility, it's so beautiful to look at. It really, I thought it was like an apartment building down there. And it was just, I don't know. I think there's so many new options for incineration. So
So I would like to jump to Neil to his question, but also
Maggie's got her hand up first.
Okay, sorry.
Thanks, Sarah. Maggie, go ahead, please.
Okay. Well, I have a lot to cover now with everything that everybody has said. I worked for the sanitation department in New York City in the 80s. They wanted to build 13 incinerators in the city. And it was my task to make sure that they wouldn't emit so much dioxin and metals and stuff. So I first told them, okay, this kind of particulate control, that kind of scrubber, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then they didn't do it, but they didn't do the incinerators. But, since 1988, I've been in the Manhattan Solid Waste Advisory Board, which is a similar organization to yours. I'm chair of the Long Range Planning Committee, have been for about 10 years. Neil is on the committee. We, along with the other SWABs, there are, 4 borough SWABs, solid waste advisory boards. And we have been writing alternative plans for a long time. We wrote one in 1991, another in 2004. We called that one Reaching for Zero. It was 200 pages. We're trying out a new model this time, which would be the first time that this kind of plan has been written, and that is not just write out, do this, do that, which is what you showed a picture of a little while ago. It was the list of about 10 things, which is so vague as to be unenforceable, useless. And just to give you further background, just in 2023, we wrote 120 pages of comments on the state's solid waste management plan and got 44 groups, I think including yours, to back what we wrote to the DEC. So there are lots and lots and lots and lots of ideas. That's great, initiatives. But what the new part is that we're now starting to do is to interview operations people in model cities, probably most on the West Coast, although Austin, Texas is a model city, believe it or not. The ones that are, already having like a diversion rate of up to 76%, so that we can say, okay, let's look at all your waste prevention programs and legislation and incentives. How much does each one cost? How long did it take to implement? What kind of diversion did you get from it? And that's how we're proceeding to go through all of it, through the reuse. And I personally am pushing for a reuse, gentle collection and evaluation and repair facility for this to happen, rather than these little, it sounds very nice to have a repair cafe and to have, all of these things. But if you add up how much they're actually rescuing from the incinerator, it's not much. And you really want to be not treating reuse like the bastard stepchild. It needs to be treated exactly the same as recycling and organics. So you collect on the curbside, you bring it to a centralized facility, and you repair everything that you can, and then you sell what you can, or you donate, and so forth and so on. So, I've been thinking and writing and presenting at conferences on this subject for quite a long time. So, but this putting together a plan which has how much it costs is really important, and how many, how much diversion do you get from each thing that you're doing, so that when you have, say you've got 50 things or 100 things that you want to do, add up all of the diversion. How much less are you going to have to send to an incinerator or a landfill? And that's the point, because if you just start by saying, okay, well, we're going to shut down the incinerator first, well, what's going to happen is what we have, which is we're exporting 82% of our discards. And most of that is recyclables and organics and repairable stuff.
I think, Maggie, as you said, you could go on and on and on about this stuff, but maybe we can hear from some of the other folks and then cycle back. Jane?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to make two comments to Sue about the incinerators. I live in a town called Brookhaven, and I grew up in a town called Syosset. In Syosset, we were literally downwind from the incinerator, and of the 5 people in my family, 5 of us have cancers. Not uncommon. In fact, a report just came out showing that when an incinerator is shut down, the amount of cancers in the immediate downwind are reduced. It's pretty clear. The other thing with incinerators is they are not really getting rid of the garbage so much as decomposing it into gases, some of which the scrubbers and the chimneys eliminate, but many of which they do not. And then there is the residue left over, and our town of Brookhaven has been collecting the residue from 5 other towns on Long Island. We've been landfilling that residue, and it's highly toxic. It's extremely acidic, and it's something that you still have to get rid of, and it doesn't have a reuse. It's not as simple as some of the other things. So in that regard, the second comment was about the town of Yaphank, which has now, after 7 years of trying to get it up and running, a standard open air composting facility, which was producing a lot of methane and other gases into the environment, has been replaced with a biodigester. And this biodigester is not only taking food scraps, they're also able to take oil from the cooking kitchens, from restaurants and the like, turning them into fuels. The output of the biodigester will be a soil type substance that can be used directly on the ground. Because it's anaerobic, the PFAS that's in any of the garbage is basically being destroyed in the process. So if you're asking what do you do, where do you go, potentially, I haven't looked a lot at the biodigesters and their technology, but that's a potential alternative to your incinerator.
Thank you, Jane. I think that Neil is next.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Is he, Sarah? Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I can only underscore what Jane just said about the threats from incineration. they're hardly, it's hard to understate the dangers. And the dangers from your particular plant are increasing because of its age, which will result in a high cost per year of pollution equipment. We just calculated that number for Montgomery County, Maryland. And in order to keep their, I think it's 30-year-old, I'm not quite sure I could get that, they're going to have to spend close to 300 million just so they could burn and meet state regulations, and we know that state regulations are not, don't guarantee safety. But to get back to the resource recovery report, the sales reduction report, I haven't looked at it, but I will, and I'll be happy to make comments. But I did put in the chat sort of guidelines for what a good waste reduction report might have. And again, I have the URL and I'll look at it. I don't know what your consultants did, but it should be an action plan that you could hand over to a bureaucrat after the politicians say this is our policy, and start implementing these suggestions based on the matrix of data you get.
So I'm just going to say, having skimmed through, there is very little data in this report. And one would think that they think the reader is, numerically illiterate. They present for each program, they go through what they're doing, and then they say, well, we collected this, or they don't actually say we collected X amount and we diverted X amount. They only give you the number of what they diverted and tell you, oh, that's great. That's the equivalent of how much oil or cars or whatever.
Yeah.
But they don't tell you anything as a percentage. They just give you the success of what they did, and you have no context for what any of it means.
Well, someone said earlier in the meeting that whoever signed this contract was an idiot. I'm paraphrasing, of course, and that's certainly true.
That's the operating agreement.
Well, your public officials were, what do they say, asleep at the switch. And I think the people who promoted this report is aimed at continuing the status quo, and the status quo is unacceptable.
Well, there's this is an issue that we have made public comments about.
Yeah, I know. You guys are terrific.
Their conflict of interest, and we are just getting our FOIL request results back about, these folks' participation in pro incineration lobbying groups.
That's
what it looks like we got.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say is that I put one in the chat, a plan, a shutdown, a zero waste shutdown plan that we did for Montgomery County, Maryland. And when I dig it out, I'll send in the one that we did for Minneapolis, Minnesota. And it shows where the garbage will go as you shut down the plant. And it identifies the landfills and the prices, etc.
Yeah, I mean, as far as what's in here, I didn't, on a quick read, I didn't see anything that gives any kind of timeline, timetable, any kind of realistic goal other than saying we can expand this stuff and do some education and outreach and, be on target to comply with the state's 2050 goals.
Thank you, Neil. John, with your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. I recently moved from Poughkeepsie, where they have their own incinerator, and maybe this is a question for Neil. It sounds like this report is very similar to the report that the Dutchess County folks had commissioned for
Yes.
For their incinerator, and that was incredibly vague and also I mean there's planning up there now to make sure that that the citizens have input into the report and some stakeholder response.
I think you're correct, John. I think it's very similar with Dutchess.
I don't know, maybe there's maybe there's some synergy. I'm not looking for extra homework for anybody.
John, do you know who the consultancy was that did the study?
I don't have it on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah, I was just curious.
I'll see if I can find it here in the next couple of minutes.
Okay, thank you so much,
I'm not
Charlie.
sure who, if anybody went to any of the public information meetings or the public hearings that were for this study. They only had 2 meetings. They were only in person in the middle of the day. And it was a public hearing to hear from the public, but they didn't present anything to the public. There wasn't anything to comment on. They didn't even present what was the scope of the study when they were asking for public input. And then they invited a couple of hand-picked groups to private stakeholder meetings, which they wouldn't share a recording of with us, and which they pre-assigned what the topic of discussion was. So they had asked us to focus on, Caitlin, what was that? Like the state's good neighbor policy. What did we think about the county's good neighbor policy? Like that had anything to do with anything. I cannot say the stakeholder engagement was anywhere near acceptable.
Can I say something about the city thing? Because
Sure,
Yonkers
sure,
is the
Sue.
third largest city in the state. Yonkers has a 158 page climate action plan, which I put in the chat. The question here is not that city government is ignoring it. They are just taking no responsibility for the incinerator and for how that happens. They are taking responsibility for the city functions. And so I think there's like a disconnect here. There's one thing county government does. This is it. They are responsible. We have county legislators. They've got to take care of the water and the garbage. I mean, what else is there that we are electing these people to do? And most of them are Democrats, except my county legislator is not. But we're going to get rid of him, hopefully. But the point is, they're still Democrats and they're still ignoring their immediate responsibility.
They're afraid of legislation that pushes anybody that mandates anybody to do anything. And they don't do enforcement, even of what we have.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Layla, can we go to a question that Maura raised in the chat about the city by city? She was asking, are we trying to pressure the localities to do more, or are we just surveying them about what they already do? Maybe you could clarify that.
Yeah, I think I think it's walking the tightrope, and the answer is both. And it really depends on your community. So, that's why we would like to work with people. And if you can have some contact and get meetings set up, we would want to be able to hand over some amount of information about what county programs that municipality is participating in, so that if we already know that your municipality has gaps that they could be taking advantage of that they're not, then certainly we would want to be, helpfully educating them and asking them to do more. But if your community is already, a gold rated, doing everything they can be doing on their own, we don't want to barge in saying you better do more. Maybe that community is one we go to and say, what can you teach us? What more would you like to do that you don't have funding for, that you don't have infrastructure for, that you can't do as an individual municipality? What would you like to do that really takes a countywide approach? Does that make more sense? And what I'm saying is really from my own past experience in dealing with these kind of departments. They're union jobs. When I was trying to promote, using infrared sensors for road salt reduction, that was new. And nobody wanted to talk to me. They're like, who the hell are you coming in here telling me how to salt a road? And I don't care what the study from Minnesota says. until I could make friends with people and say, hey, if I got you a grant and got you to pilot test an infrared sensor, you want to work with me? And I would start to get somewhere. You know, Somers was willing to do that. Bedford did that. Yorktown at the time, that highway supervisor was really into it all, and he taught us a lot. He already started brining years before anybody else in Westchester County was doing it. He was using beer hops in the beginning, and everybody was complaining that the road smelled. But I think it really is a personal, who are the people in your town? What kind of relationship can you have? But I like to make friends and go slow. It does not help to just bully in and say, here's what you have to do.
The fact that Rye instituted a year-round ban on gas blowers should be admirable, and we should all copy it. And already, Yonkers is as far away from Rye as it could be, in politically and in every way. But we're going to do it. We've already introduced legislation in our city council.
That's fantastic, Sue.
Why
That's really
not
cool.
everybody
Mhm.
do that? Let's pick a project. I don't know about that road salt thing, but that sounds good too. So, I mean, pick the projects that are going to be most a bang for the buck, I think. But I really want to get rid of the gas blowers, so we're going to do that.
So I think we were hoping that this study might have given us some pointers towards specific model legislation rather than us reinventing the wheel. But, now that we see what is or is not in there, that's what we'll be doing.
Julie asked who owns and operates the MRF.
I saw that question.
Well, I believe the answer is the county owns it.
The county
It is a
operates it
contracted.
for sure.
I thought it was the
The
operators.
opposite
Yeah, it's the opposite. I think the county owns it, but
owns it. Yes, you're right,
the
Lila.
operator is the contractor that takes the recycling, I believe.
Yeah, and like all of the people that work at the MRF are not, oh, no, no, I have to be careful. Like the people that gave us the tour, I believe work for the county. But the people that we saw, like, for example, removing what they call the residue, work for this separate entity. I think it's RNC.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I hope that answers your question.
The other one thing I would like that we didn't ask about, Caitlin, that we ran out of time, is where is the residential MRF where you drop off all the,
HMRF?
yeah, do they do tours of that?
Well, that's in Valhalla also.
That
They
would be way
don't
more
not so
interesting.
it's when we go and see CompostEd, it's right next to, it's the same facility, but
I see.
they do not offer tours of that. And that would be very, very interesting. I agree. Yeah, that would be very interesting. Well, we have come, it's 8:30. We try to stick to our hour long. I'm seeing, Sarah, are there any questions that we've missed? Do you think?
I think we
Sorry, I
all
was
have
on mute.
homework.
Sue had asked about whether WAS is supporting plastic reduction act, and I think something just
Yeah.
passed in Albany this past week, right?
They've been lobbying for it, but there was a big
Yeah.
lobby day on February 9th, I think, but I don't know if it passed.
Maybe I'm thinking of the lobby day.
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe.
Um,
Yeah.
I think we
But
would
yes, we
if it
certainly support
passed.
it.
But no,
Yeah.
have we been supporting it? Because I think it's one of the most important things we could do. I mean, it's one thing for me to not buy plastic, but we have to prevent manufacturers from making it.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, I think,
Completely agree.
we're only volunteering our time when we can, but we work pretty closely with Beyond Plastics and other state groups, and we always partner and sign on to those
Mhm.
legislative initiatives.
So the last comment in the chat is from John about his willingness to be a contact for Yorktown Heights. And it looks like on this call, there are 4 of us from
Oh, okay.
Yorktown. I think Robin, are you in Yorktown?
Yes, I'm here for Indivisible.
Yeah, and Maura,
Hi,
I know,
Robin.
is in Yorktown as well, and I am, and John. So you've got 4 people, unless anyone else on the call is also in Yorktown. But here's 4 of us. So, perhaps we can connect locally and see how we may want to approach our refuse and recycling department and start to build, some conversations and relationships with them.
Well,
That's great, Sarah.
maybe since there are so many of us, and I'm Croton, but I technically used to live in Yorktown and had worked with them there in the past.
And it sounds like you had a relationship with either the current or former. It was that Dave
it was like a
Paganelli.
good 15 plus years ago.
Oh, okay. So
I
it's not a
assume it's
current one.
different people, but
Yeah.
it's a bigger town for Northern Westchester, and they were doing some innovative stuff. So I hope they still have that attitude. And I was just going to say, if there are a number of us, maybe it would be the first good test town, and some of you would be willing to work with me on kind of the format of the volunteer materials.
Yeah, and we do have a CSC task
Mhm.
force, and I'm on that. So maybe we could focus on some of those CSC, waste reduction initiatives and get some points, get some grant money, and again, try to have it be a model.
That would be great.
Great. Well, thank you all so much. This was a really, really great discussion tonight. And I feel like we had such an incredibly informed audience. We could have handed off the speaker position to so many people on this call. So thank you so much for participating. And we will have the recording of this Zoom out in a few days. So if you're on the mailing list, you will get that. And thank you so much and have a wonderful night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Like,
Can you stay on?
Oh, Elaine?
Yes, I just have one question.
Sure.
I went to this meeting with Ken Jenkins.